Back then, when the Pacific was a cauldron of fire and steel, there was a weapon that earned both fear and respect. The Browning automatic rifle, the BAR. It wasn't just another gun. No, it was a lifeline. Developed in the final months of World War I, it found its true place decades later, across the islands of the Pacific. Marines and soldiers, young men barely more than boys, carried it through jungles thick with heat, mud, and the stench of war. Imagine it, the BAR in your hands. 20 pounds of solid steel and wood. Heavy, yes, but with a bite. It spat 30 caliber rounds at nearly 500 per minute, a roar that could cut through palm forests, a sound that froze Japanese soldiers in their tracks. But here's the thing. It wasn't designed to be a light machine gun, not really. It was meant for short, violent bursts. Yet out there, in the foxholes and muddy trails of Guadalcanal, Tarawa and Peleliu, the BAR became something more. It became the backbone. Each squad, 10, maybe 12 men, looked to their BAR man. His job? Suppress, pin down, create just enough chaos so the rest could move forward. The Japanese soldiers were fierce, disciplined. They fought from caves, bunkers, and spider holes. They launched banzai charges that shook the very ground, and when they came screaming through the night, rifles raised, bayonets glinting in the moonlight, the BAR answered. Thump, 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 thump. A burst of fire cutting through the dark, stopping men mid-charge, saving lives. Marines used to say, when the BAR opened up, it was like having a guardian angel. But there was a price. 20 pounds on your back, magazines that emptied too quickly, only 20 rounds each. A BAR man carried as many as he could, bandoliers across his chest, pouches on his belt, sometimes stuffing magazines into socks or packs. And when the fight started, click, slam, fire, reload, again and again. The Japanese weren't fools. They knew the BAR man was the heart of an American squad. Grimly, they hunted him. Snipers, machine gunners, they looked for the man with the heavier weapon, the one laying down the fiercest fire. The BAR man's life was often the shortest in the unit. Still, every squad wanted the best man on the BAR. Someone steady, someone brave, someone who wouldn't break when the shouting began. Because out there, in the steaming jungles and on the bloody beaches, the BAR was more than just a weapon. It was survival. And in those desperate hours, it was the difference between living and never coming home.
Picture it now. Guadalcanal, 1942. The jungle thick as a wall, the air wet and heavy, filled with insects and the smell of rot. A squad moves forward, rifles at the ready. And there, front and center, is the barman. He isn't just another rifleman. No, he's the shield, the hammer, the fire that pushes the enemy back. When the Japanese launch an ambush, crack crack of Arasaka rifles, the chatter of a Numbu machine gun, the squad drops low, scrambling for cover. And then the bar opens up. Thump, 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 thump. A stream of .30 caliber rounds rips through the undergrowth, branches snap, dust flies, and for just a moment the world tilts in the Americans' favor. That's how it went, time and time again. The bar wasn't perfect, far from it. Heavy, awkward. It got scorching hot in minutes. The barrel glowed red, sometimes warping under the relentless fire. But when you needed it, when your life hung by a thread, it was the bar that roared to life. At Tarawa, Marines clawed their way onto the beaches under merciless fire. Machine guns dug into bunkers, cut men down in rows. The sand was red with blood. And yet barmen pushed forward, crawling on their bellies, jamming magazines into the weapon with trembling hands, firing short, savage bursts to keep the Japanese pinned as flamethrowers and demolition teams closed in. You could always tell where the fighting was thickest. Just follow the sound of the bar. At Peleliu, where temperature soared past 110 degrees, men fought in coral ridges and jagged caves. Water was scarce, flesh blistered in the sun, and through it all the bar kept barking. Japanese snipers would aim for the man behind the weapon. Everyone knew it, but still the barman rose. Still he laid down the fire. Because if he didn't, the squad was blind, exposed, helpless. There are stories, dozens of them, of barmen standing their ground when all others had fallen back, holding off charges until their last magazine ran dry. Whispers, sometimes until their last breath. Think about it. A 20-year-old kid from Kansas or Ohio or a farm in Arkansas, carrying a weapon nearly as heavy as he was strong, and yet in his hands it became the wall between life and death for his brothers. That was the bar in the Pacific. Not glamorous, not flawless, but indispensable. And as the war raged on through the jungles of New Guinea, the volcanic rock of Iwo Jima, the shattered ruins of Okinawa, the bar's legend only grew. It was the gun every Marine trusted, and the one every Japanese soldier feared. You see, the BAR wasn't just metal and wood. It was a burden, a test, a curse, and a lifeline. Men remembered it long after the battles were over. The weight on their shoulders, the heat of the barrel against their hands, the deafening roar that left their ears ringing, even in silence. "I can still hear it," one Marine said years later, "the thumping sound, Every time I close my eyes, it's there. The BAR man had no choice. He was the squad's anchor. When the squad moved forward, he carried the heaviest load. When the squad dug in, he laid down the fiercest fire. And when the Japanese charged, he was the first to answer. Some Marines joked, half serious, that the BAR came with a death sentence. Snipers knew who to target. Machine gunners zeroed in on that steady burst of fire. And so the BAR man fought with a clock ticking over his head. Yet they never put it down. One Marine on Peleliu recalled crawling forward under fire, his squad pinned, his friends screaming for cover. He felt the sting of bullets whipping the sand around him, felt the BAR pounding in his hands. And when his magazine clicked empty, he rolled onto his back, slammed another home, and kept firing. "If I stopped," he said, "we'd all be dead." That was the truth of it. The BAR man's courage was measured not in medals, but in survival, in keeping his brothers alive one more night, one more day, one more battle. And it took a toll. The heat, the exhaustion, the never-ending strain of carrying 20 pounds of steel plus ammo across mud, coral, and jungle. Every step felt heavier, every mile a battle before the battle even began. But when the fighting came, there was no time to think about the weight, no time to think about fear, only time to fight. At night, after the guns had gone quiet, men would sit in their foxholes, staring into the dark. Some smoked, some prayed, some just listened to the jungle, to the insects, to their own pounding hearts. And the BAR sat beside them, silent for the moment, but ready, always ready. They knew tomorrow it would speak again, and they knew it might be their last day behind it.
By 1945, the Pacific had become a graveyard. The war dragged on, each battle bloodier than the last. The Marines landed on Iwo Jima under the shadow of Mount Suribachi. Black volcanic sand clung to their boots, sucking them down, slowing every step. Japanese machine guns cut through the air, mowing down men before they even reached cover. And once again, the BAR spoke. Thump, thump, thump. Short, sharp bursts across the sands. The heavy weapon was dragged forward, manhandled into firing positions, its barrel glowing red as Marines used it to claw out every inch of ground. Cave by cave, bunker by bunker, the BAR pinned defenders down, while grenades and flamethrowers cleared the rest. The Japanese were everywhere. Hidden tunnels, spider holes, they struck from the shadows, vanished, and then struck again. And through that chaos, the BAR man became the steady hand. He was the difference between being overrun and pushing forward. Then came Okinawa. the last, greatest battle of the Pacific. Rain fell hard, turning fields into swamps. Artillery pounded day and night. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, their cries lost in the thunder of guns. And the BAR was there, in every squad, every ridge, every ruined village. The Japanese fought with a desperation never seen before. Kamikazes filled the skies. Banzai charges swept across muddy fields. And each time, the BAR answered with its relentless fire. Some Marines swore they could tell a BAR's voice apart from every other weapon. That deep, steady thump was the sound of survival. But by Okinawa, the toll was unbearable. Entire units shattered. Young men, hardened by years of war, walked like ghosts. And the BAR, though it kept them alive, it also chained them to the fight. When the war finally ended, when the bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the Japanese surrendered, the men who carried the BAR laid it down with shaking hands. Some kissed it, some shoved it away, never wanting to see it again, and some just stared at it in silence, remembering the brothers who never came home. Because the BAR wasn't just a weapon. It was a companion, a curse, a guardian. And for many, the sound of its steady thump, thump, thump never really faded.
When the guns finally went silent in 1945, the world exhaled. The Pacific was littered with ruins, with graves, with memories too heavy to carry. The Marines and soldiers who returned home carried scars, some on their bodies, many in their hearts. And for those who had carried the Browning automatic rifle, the memories were sharper still. They remembered its weight, its steady thump, its power, and its price. The BAR didn't fade away after the Pacific. No, it marched on, through Korea, through Vietnam, in different hands, different wars. It still played its role, always heavy, always fierce, always dependable. But in the Pacific, in those desperate years of fire and blood, the BAR became something more than a weapon. It became the symbol of a squad's will to survive. Think of it this way. A dozen young men huddled together in a foxhole on Guadalcanal, rain pouring down, Japanese voices echoing in the jungle, fear gnawing at their bones. And then the BAR man arises, plants himself in the mud, and lets loose a burst that drives the enemy back. In that moment, every man breathes easier. Every man believes they might see another sunrise. That's the kind of thing you don't forget. Not at 20, not at 80, not ever. Some BAR men spoke of nightmares, waking in the night to the sound of phantom gunfire. Others, though, spoke of pride, quiet pride, that they carried the weight, that they did their duty, that they kept their brothers alive. And maybe that's what the BAR really was. Not just a rifle, not just a tool of war, but a burden willingly carried by the strong for the sake of the many. Every man who hefted it knew the risk. They knew the Japanese would hunt them. They knew they might not come home. And still they fought. Still they bore the weight of the BAR because somebody had to. That kind of courage doesn't vanish with time. It lingers in the silence of old veterans' stories, in the photographs tucked away in dusty albums, in the fading memories passed from father to son, grandfather to grandson. And even now, if you listen closely, you can almost hear it. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat of a squad, the sound of defiance, the voice of survival in the Pacific War. The Browning automatic rifle, the BAR. Not perfect, not easy, but unforgettable. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the sacrifices of a generation that gave everything for the world we live in today, then keep their memory alive, share their stories, speak their names, and never let them be forgotten. After all, history isn't just in books or museums. It lives in us, in our voices, in the way we remember. And as long as we remember, the BAR still speaks.
You see, history isn't just ink on paper. It isn't just black and white photographs or numbers etched on stone memorials. No. It's the beating heart of those who lived it. The men who carried the bar, who sweated in jungles, who bled on beaches, who stood shoulder to shoulder when the world seemed to be falling apart. They left behind more than weapons and medals. They left us lessons. Courage, brotherhood, sacrifice. And it's up to us to carry those lessons forward, to tell their stories, to speak of their struggles and their triumphs. Because every time we remember them, they live again. And that's why I share these tales with you. Because somewhere out there, maybe in a quiet living room or on a porch at sunset, someone will hear this story and feel that spark of connection. Maybe a veteran's grandson, maybe a curious student, maybe you. And if you feel that connection too, if you want these voices of the past to keep echoing into the future, then join me. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, share your thoughts, your family stories, your memories. Even a single line can mean more than you know. Hit the like button, not for me, but for them. For the men who carried the bar, who never gave up, even when the world seemed lost.
because every click, every share, every word spoken aloud keeps their legacy alive. And that, my friends, is how we honor them. Not just with monuments of stone, but with living voices, with stories carried forward, with the promise that they will not be forgotten. So, until next time, remember the sound of the bar, remember the men who bore its weight, and remember, history lives in us as long as we choose to keep it alive. I'll see you in the next story.